It's Friday, September 18th, and time for your Barbados Today Morning News Update. A University of the West Indies official is raising questions about the likelihood of an outbreak of a new infectious disease in the Caribbean due to the eating practices of some residents. As such, Kirk Douglas, Director for Biosecurity Studies at the UWI Cavill campus, said it was critical that regional lawmakers put pertinent measures in place to close a number of gaps to better protect the population. He made the comments during a Zoom session yesterday on the topic Safeguarding Lives and Livelihoods, Biosecurity Outlook for COVID-19 and Future Pandemics and Outbreaks.
Right across the Caribbean, we engage in certain social cultural norms that we don't view with the same level of skepticism as we would in the Southeast Asian cultures. But we do have some practices that we have to look at. For instance, if you go hunting an agouti, or an agouti is just a rodent, and we know there are many rodent-borne infections, then even in the actual act of hunting, you can be exposed to aerosols that may be contaminated, and a person may contract some virus or some bacteria from this as well. So we do have to really revisit our biosecurity legislation, all the different acts, all the different laws, and see if there are gaps that can be closed that can help make the regional biosecurity system much more robust and much more resilient as well.
The one-year time frame for Barbados' transition to a republic may be too short for any radical changes to be made. That's the view of political scientist Dr. Christina Hines, who believes that by November 2021, the major feature of Barbados' new republic would be a president whose duties are identical to those of a governor-general. Nevertheless, she's praised the announcement made in Tuesday's throne speech, describing it as long overdue.
What kind of functions will this president have? How will those functions relate to those in the cabinet and that of the prime minister? If this is just a ceremonial president, which I suspect it will be, then it's quite similar to the governor general. But if the government of Barbados wants to do something that is more radical, I think it probably will take longer than a year to have something more radical than that, because you would be significantly changing our political system. If it is a president that we have to vote for, then that would require some changes to how we run our elections, whether we may have two elections, I don't know. So I suspect that we will have a ceremonial president. If it is anything other than that within a year, I would find that very impressive.
Meanwhile, political scientist Peter Wickham is predicting that Barbados will follow the Trinidad and Tobago model. He also shot down the idea of holding a referendum on the matter, saying that to do so would be a mistake.
To go to a referendum, in my opinion, would be a mistake. The reality is that all of the referenda in the Caribbean in recent times have failed. And the failure has nothing to do with people's love for the monarchy. The failure just has to do with the fact that a referendum presents an opposition an opportunity to oppose. The question is what type of republic. My sense is that we will have to go the road of Trinidad and Tobago or Dominica as a Commonwealth, where we have a president that's elected, either selected directly by the Prime Minister or alternatively elected by an electoral college within Parliament, which is what Trinidad and Tobago. That's the easiest route to go within the short term, and my sense is that we'll do that as a first step, and then maybe later we'll start a conversation about the other mechanics of how it can work. But that to me will be the direction that we're likely to go.
Some of this island's business owners are hoping that the $300 million stimulus package and the $40 million COVID-19 relief program announced in Tuesday's throne speech will generate enough economic activity to revive the stagnant economy. Businessman and former president of the Barbados Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Eddie Abed, spoke with Barbados Today about the recently announced measures.
There are three parts of his speech that I was particularly pleased with. One is that they're relaxing the debt ratios with the BERT program for the next 2 years. It would have been impossible to attain them. And rather than missing them, I think we've recognized up front that we need to relax that. 2 is the best program, recognizes that we need to get people back to work, and rather than paying them through national insurance to stay home, we have them back at work, and there are training programs, subsidies, capital investment, several things that will not only, I think, make the country more productive going forward, but also address that psyche of having somebody back at work. Being back at work presents a whole different scenario than being home and hoping to go back to work. And thirdly, is that we recognize how important the hospitality and tourism sector is. That, unofficially, it must account for 50% of our GDP, both on the parallel economy underground and the regular economy.
Woolworths Managing Director Martin Bryan, who is also heartened by the measures, revealed that over the last 2 weeks, his store had seen a significant increase in traffic when compared with the last few months.
We're still not seeing the kind of numbers we would have seen in previous years because, especially with school closed, because if you're not going to school 5 days a week, you don't need 5 uniforms, right? But last 2 weeks, we've definitely seen an increase in traffic, and this is the last lap now, I guess, this weekend. And we're ready. We have all of our stock, stationery, school clothes, socks, backpacks, etc. So, we got 3 more days really. Next week there'll still be a split off because the week of school there's still people are still coming in to get their extras, but this weekend will be the weekend.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
Barbados Today, news you can trust.
To news from our regional neighbors now, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is in Guyana for an official visit. He arrived in the country yesterday, shortly after 5 p.m. Pompeo is scheduled to meet with President Irfaan Ali today to sign an agreement that will permit Guyana to improve its investment-enabling environment. The United States and Guyana will also exchange diplomatic notes for joint maritime patrols. According to the State Department, Pompeo is also expected to formally meet and hold extended talks with the country's foreign minister, as well as Secretary General of the Caribbean Community, Ambassador Erwin Lowrock, today. Pompeo's visit to Guyana is seen as historic since he is the highest-ranking U.S. government official to visit the country. And finally, new restrictions to halt a rise in COVID-19 cases have come into force in northeast England, affecting almost 2 million people. The temporary measures, which went into effect at midnight, are to tackle concerning rates of infection in the region. Health Secretary Matt Hancock spoke to the House of Commons about the measures.
In Northumberland, North Tyneside, South Tyneside, Newcastle upon Tyne, Gateshead, Sunderland and County Durham, residents should not socialise with other people outside their own households or support bubble. Hospitality for food and drink will be restricted to table service only, and late night restrictions of operating hours will be introduced, so leisure and entertainment venues must close between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. Mr. Speaker, I know, the whole House knows, that these decisions have a real impact on families, on businesses and on local communities. And I can tell everyone affected that we do not take these decisions lightly. We agree with the local councils that we must follow the data and act. And the data says that we must act now. So we can control the virus and keep people safe. And I know that the people of the North East will come together to defeat this virus. As defeat it, we must.
That's news. But for the very latest, visit us at www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, or like us on Facebook, and sign up for our breaking news alerts via WhatsApp. We're also on Izumi Media in bus terminals, as well as screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. And you can also hear us on Mix 96.9 FM and Capital Media HD 99.3 FM.